Okay, I want to jump right into it. I want you all to hear this sound from Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who defended the Capitol on January 6th.
This would go back a little bit to your point about Mike Pence doing his job. We signed up for it. We signed up. We know that there's an opportunity that something bad could happen. We know that there's an opportunity nobody wants it to happen. So when people say you did your job on January 6th, that's what we did. So when Mike Pence is being called this hero, that's what he did his job.
Roland, your thoughts on the lauding of Mike Pence as a hero for his actions on January 6th?
Well, it's sort of like Chris Rock said when folks like, I take care of my kids. He said, you're supposed to take care of your kids. And so this whole deal of praising Mike Pence for ignoring Donald Trump, that's what you were supposed to do. Do your job. But let's also remember, he did not call the FBI when they came in with this coup plan. He called Dan Quayle to get his advice on it. And so Mike Pence could have actually done more. What we have to understand here is that this goes beyond Donald Trump, Simone. This is an entire apparatus. The Republican Party, from the top to the bottom, that was involved in this, the entire conservative movement. You're talking about lawyers, think tanks, and others. This is what coups are all about. This is a desperate attempt to hold on to power, and Democrats and progressives better stop being so nice and so academic and realize these folks are not done. They will continue to try to seize power by any means necessary.
You know, Meredith, Roland makes an important point. It's a point that I've made. The threat to democracy is ongoing here. The former president of the United States, Donald Trump, has not stopped talking about Mike Pence, pressuring him, talking about him in a negative way. You have some new reporting on this. Tell us more.
Well, I just came back this morning from Nashville, where I was covering the Faith and Freedom Coalition convention there. This is an annual gathering of conservative evangelical Christians who are politically involved, and it often attracts 2024 presidential hopefuls, big headline Republican names. And this year, former President Donald Trump was the keynote speaker. And in his speech, he continued to talk about the 2020 election, and he attacked Vice President Mike Pence, who he said did not have the courage to act that day, and really spent a good portion of his speech there to what in the past really would have been a sympathetic crowd for Pence. He spent it attacking Pence and talking about that day. And meanwhile, Pence declined an invitation to show there. I think from what you guys were talking about, there are a lot of people who are asking for Pence to speak out more. We heard from some of his advisors in the January 6 hearings, but Pence is not going to be testifying. And in fact, when he's been out and made public appearances, he's really shied away from talking about all of that. He has said that he did his constitutional duty, but for the most part, is really focused on the 2022 midterms. And I think for some people, it's been disappointing that he hasn't gone after Trump more.
I mean, I will reserve my thoughts. Y'all heard my comments at the top of the show. The committee also talked about this week.
No guts.
No guts. I mean, it is appalling because this was, in fact, an attack on our democracy. It wasn't an attack on one political party. The committee this week, though, they also revealed in some emails from John Eastman to Rudy Giuliani, and Eastman is demanding to be on Trump's pardon list. Now, Congressman, as you know, these hearings are not a court of law, but they are definitely a part of the court of public opinion. So I'm wondering if you can weigh in here on how a Republican congressperson goes about defending Donald Trump's reliance on Eastman to overturn the election when we now know he didn't even believe what he was selling the American people.
Because much like Mike Pence, the whole lot of them are guilty. All of them are. They're all willing to go along with this very dangerous person in leadership of the party and for 4 years at leadership of the country for their own self-interest, their own elevation, their own political advancement, whatever it might be. And I think that's the thread here from Mike Pence to members of Congress to today Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell. You could argue even Paul Ryan when he was Speaker of the House, which is they each made this certain Faustian bargain, a deal with the devil, if you will, that they were willing to accept a dangerous leader as long as they got something for it. And so Mike Pence should not be lauded for simply doing his job. The heroes that day were the men and women in wearing the blue uniforms and the law enforcement officers who were trying to protect the modern cradle of democracy, and instead recognize that Mike Pence knew a dangerous man was in office for 4 years and did nothing about it. Same is true for Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and every Republican member of Congress right now. They knew there was a dangerous member of Congress, a dangerous president in office for 4 years, and they did nothing about it. That is their very sad and indicting legacy.
We're going to get into more of this after the break because
Simone.
Go ahead, Roland. Go ahead. I got a little time. Come on now. Let's talk about it. Okay. We're going to get into it after the break, but you want to talk about Mike Pence and these Republicans. Go ahead.
Ooh.
Come on.
No, I want to talk about these fake Christians. I want to talk about these fake conservative Christians, these fake conservative white Christians. I'm here at the Poor People's Campaign with their Moral Assembly. And how are you, Ralph Reed, with a Faith and Freedom Coalition, and you allow a man to lie in front of you? Is that a Christian principle? Is that a principle of Jesus? Did the poor even come up at that gathering there? This is the fundamental problem that we have in this country, where we have white conservative evangelicals. And look, my wife is an ordained minister. I'm a Christian. And these folks will accept lies. And so they are hypocritical Christians, and I'm sick and tired of them providing a moral perspective when they will knowingly accept immorality from an immoral leader like Donald Trump and the rest of them. They are hypocrites, and they should be called on it, and they are fake Christians as far as I'm concerned.
Charlie, Meredith McGraw, and Roland Martin are still with us. I want to expand this January 6th discussion past the actual hearings. I want to talk about the future, okay? And I want to talk about Ginny Thomas. She is the wife, for folks out there who don't know, of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and she is once again making headlines for all the wrong reasons. This is after reports that Ginny Thomas contacted John Eastman. The committee has invited her to testify. Now, Ginny Thomas told the Daily Caller that she looks forward to, quote, clearing up any misconceptions. Now, Meredith, this looks like it's still in the early stages, but is there any word yet on when that testimony will be and what the committee will focus on if when the testimony happens?
No, but I think what the committee really is trying to do with all of these hearings is really make a clear case in all the different ways and all the different angles that former President Donald Trump and his team tried to exert pressure on different people. This coming Tuesday, we're going to be hearing from Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and others in Georgia who, of course, Trump famously called and tried to pressure to quote unquote, find votes to change the results of the election there. So with each of these hearings, last week it was the pressure campaign on Vice President Mike Pence, but they're showing all of the different ways that they tried to push people to act in certain ways.
Congressman, I want to talk about a recent New York Times report from last March. Actually, wait, no. I don't want to do the New York Times report. I want to talk about a New York Times story. They're telling me we're short on time, but I want to get to this point because it's something that Roland said earlier in the show, and it's something that I've been talking about. So Jamel Bowie of the New York Times, he wrote an op-ed and that said this. He said, quote, "The easiest thing for Democrats to do, of course, is nothing." He goes on to say if Democrats choose instead to act as a political party, they would do well to remember that if the tables were turned, their opponents would not hesitate to use every argument and every tool at their disposal. Congressman, if it were Republicans who were in charge, who are in the White House right now, if it were a Supreme Court justice appointed by a Republican, and we were talking about Ginny Thomas, who was the wife of someone else, wouldn't Republicans be all over this? Am I crazy?
Oh, they absolutely would. And look, I think Democrats on the Hill don't even need to consider the political consequences to realize if we do our job right, the American people are going to learn very damning information about the former president and Republicans, and they can make a political judgment. But I think in terms of going into November, Simone, to pick up on Roland's comment, do not let the Republican Party steal the platform of faith, the platform of freedom, the platform of love, the platform of parental rights, because their policies are actually antithetical to all of those things. And if today's Democratic Party can grab that mantle back from Republicans and say, we're the party of freedom, we're the party that believes in all things love, regardless of your faith, now you're talking to the American people exactly how they understand it. And you can beat back on this false prophet narrative that's going through today's Republican Party.
Roland, I refer to this theory as Democrats need to be willing, or just anyone who cares about our democracy needs to be willing to go toe to toe at this point. Call it how it is, call balls and strikes. And I'm wondering if you think that is the path forward for folks in this political discourse right now.
4 words, hail to the yeah. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. People want to see that you actually care. They want to see that you're going to fight for this country, that you're going to fight for them. And what is happening is Democrats are trying to play a game when the other side says there are no rules. The Democrats are going, no, no, no. According to Section 18.6, these are the rules of engagement. They've already made it clear there are none. And President Biden, please, for the love of God, stop saying this is not your grandfather's Republican Party. Guess what? That's gone. You've got to stop hearkening back for the Republican parties of the 80s and the early 90s when there were moderate Republicans. It is gone. They have to engage in warfare. Jenny Thomas is sleeping with one of 9 Supreme Court justices. Are you trying to actually convince me that Clarence Thomas somehow has no idea what his wife is doing? Hell, I know what my wife is doing. She know what I'm doing. And so it's utterly ludicrous. And Meredith, I hear your point about how they want to show how people around Trump were trying to show what he was doing. No, no, this is bigger than him. This has now gone past Donald Trump. This thing is now affected. It's going to have a mass effect on the elections because states,
and it's still happening.
Local,
it's
they change
happening.
Districts. This is much deeper, and Democrats ain't getting this thing.
Well, I would just, David Jolly, Meredith McGraw, Roland Martin, we could have this conversation all day. I will say that we're going to get into the active threats going on later on in this show, so people should stick around. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is still a threat to our democracy. I do not like talking about him as much as anybody else, but the threat is ongoing, y'all. Thank you so much for your time, folks.